I'm really excited to have you here. You know, you and I have known each other, actually met through a mutual friend, you know, and who truly was one of the originators and came up with the name for us for Sett Studio. You know, Joey's been a great friend of mine for years, and I got to meet you. I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
My name's Adam Souter. I'm a licensed carpenter and builder, and I'm the director of Souter Built. We operate in Wollongong, about an hour south of Sydney in Australia. Obviously, I got to put that out.
It's not a Texas accent.
It's not a Texas accent. And yeah, we specialize in two niches in our business: heritage restorations and environmental builds. More so passive house technology.
And I mean, I've been a fan of yours forever. You know, ever since you and I met, you've got something that most people don't have, you know, and that's something that I've always admired. And you were young back then, you know. I mean, not that you're old now. I'm definitely older than you. However, no, they come in. You know, you start having kids, they all start coming in. You know. But even from back then, I'm so glad that we've kept in touch. But it's been awesome to see, social media wise, you know, watching your journey. The work and the craftsmanship that you guys have is unbelievable, even in comparison to some of the best builders here. And I truly believe that you guys have some of the best builders in the world. You know, just because of the craftsmanship and the attention, just sheer attention to detail. It's kind of funny. I look at a lot of products and a lot of sites and stuff for manufacturers that are over there, and I always try to call and go, can we get these doors? Can we get these windows? And they're like, yeah, no. Which irritates the hell out of me, because y'all have some phenomenal stuff, especially doors and stuff like that, with very tiny reveals and stuff like that. And a reveal, for those who don't know, is just kind of the metal frame on a door or a window. You know, just gorgeous stuff. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't ship to the U.S. I'm like, you know, it's irritating. But I'd love to figure out, or love for you to tell me a little bit about what's entailed to be a builder there. It's completely different than it is in Texas and most places in the States. You know, some places in the state like Tennessee, you have to take a test. It's kind of a joke, but it's a test. You know, Texas, you don't have to do anything. What do you have to do?
Well,
a builder?
You don't actually have to be a qualified tradesman to get your builder's license, which I think is a bit of bullshit. Because I think you need to be able to practice what you preach. So to not have a trade behind you or not understand it and just do the license, which you can. You know, when I did my builder's license, I did it at night time, and it was 2 years, 3 nights a week while I was doing my trade, finishing my trade at the same time. And we had accountants in there. We had people that the teachers having to like explain these simple terminologies. But that's, in a sense, you can be a qualified, back in the day it used to be you could be a qualified carpenter or a qualified bricklayer, and the builder's license was called your clerk of works. Now it's certificate 4 in building and construction, certificate 3, certificate 4, one of those. It's been a while. And you can either have a experience in the industry supervising jobs to get your license, or you have to do a diploma if you have had like no trade background, and you have to be able to show, in the state that we live in, Fair Trading's who gives out the licenses. And then so that's pretty much the journey to do it. That's well, and again, you know, here in the U.S. in most cases, you know, you can just buy a sign and stick it on the side of your truck, and you can kind of like roofers, you know what I mean, and you're good to go essentially. When I lived in Canada, it was the same. It was the same kind of weird thing where I went to the pub the first time, and I was sitting next to this guy, and he goes, "Oh, what do you do, mate?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a carpenter." And he goes, "Oh, I'm a carpenter." And I'm thinking, "Oh, sweet, I might be able to get a job with this guy." And you know, he was older than me, and I was like, "So how long have you been doing this for?" He's like, "About 2 weeks." I was like, "You're a bloody carpenter, mate. You can't say you're a carpenter."
Well, and there's a difference. There's a difference between like a carpenter and a framer and things like that. And I don't think people really understand that, you know. And I think carpenter's thrown around very loosely, but you understand what it means, you know. I mean, I look at a carpenter, you have framers, trim guys, and then you have true carpenters, you know. And it's completely different. I look at a carpenter as someone who performs art. Like you can build furniture, you can, you know, things like that. You can make cuts and put things together so you don't need caulk, you don't need any filler, things like true artisan style work. And that's something that we're lacking in the U.S. There's very few true carpenters, you know, and true woodworkers, where it used to be a lot more, you know, but it's just like everything else. Plumbing, electricians, HVAC guys are they're disappearing. None of these young kids want those jobs. It's actual work. And they just don't know what to do with themselves with that, right? I've got 3 boys. The youngest is 19, and none of them want to take over our jobs, you know, and I always had the dream of, you know, running a business, having, you know, them take it over and have pride in taking it over. And they're like, no, I'm good. And so it's a loss.
It's a different generation that's coming through right now.
It is.
And I talk to, and it's funny, my partner says you sound like an old man. And I'm not that old, I'm 37. But I've been doing this for 19 years now. And I talk to my site manager, I talk to my other chippies and older guys. Like, we're just scratching our head with these young fellas, and they want everything now. They don't want to put in the hard work, and they want top dollar. And it's like, man, my apprenticeship was like so different. Like, you know, you earned nothing. You were below the poverty line. They gave you $6 an hour, and you had to make it work, and you had to live at home. And by the time you paid for fuel and tolls and everything, you'd have like $40 to your name.
Jeez.
And it was like, all right, if you want to do this, you go get another job. If you want to move out home, then that's what I had to do. I was working 2 jobs. That's just what you had to do. But now they actually make good money. They changed all the laws. They changed the minimum wage. So apprentices are making like 40 grand a year.
Holy cow.
And they're grabbing a broom, like, you know, like a mature age apprentice. They're grabbing a broom and they're sweeping, and they don't know how good they've got it.
Wow.
And you're just like, dude.
Well, see, and I think, you know, some of the old days weeded out a lot of the people that shouldn't be doing
100%,
right?
100%.
Because at that point, it's got to be a passion. You've got to love it. You've got to really be in for the long haul.
It's not about the money. At the beginning, it can't be about the money, or you shouldn't be doing it.
100%. Well, and the other thing too is that the younger generation does not understand is when you learn a trade, you have it forever. It doesn't mean that you have to stay in that industry. You can leave and come back, and you still have a skill that not many people have. And we're built in a society of convenience. So most people don't know how to fix a toilet, to you know,
put up a blind.
Yeah, exactly.
Change a tire.
Yeah, big time, you know, and that's huge, you know. And those are things, innate traits that even men should have, you know. And I can go all day long on, you know, the decrease in masculinity across everywhere, you know, for hours. But that's part of it, you know. What's going to happen when our generations are no longer around?
I know.
You know, and it continues to go down. Who's going to teach these kids? I guess YouTube or something. I don't know, you know. But I think that those are innate things that you should know how to do to be somewhat self-sufficient. Just because you know how to change your oil, does that mean you're going to? No, you don't necessarily have to, but damn it, you have to know, you know.
And I can't like blanket the whole generation, because right now we've got this school-based apprentice. He's 15, and he's just like, it's a breath of fresh air. He's got 3 jobs.
Wow.
He's in school, and he's doing this thing, a school-based apprenticeship. So I've never done this before. So he stays in school for year 11 and 12, and he comes to me 1 day a week, and he does his apprenticeship with me. And then at the end of his school, I give him a job. He starts with me as a second-year apprentice. So he's already got his career sorted. He's a hustler. He's got a great attitude. He's hungry. And it's just like, okay, it's not that there are some unicorns out there.
Yeah. And those are important to recognize.
Yeah.
Because those are few and far between.
Yeah.
And those are those innate values that you have, I think, that you're born with or you're not.
Yeah.
You know, because it's hard. And I've said it 100 times, it's hard to teach drive. You can't teach drive.
No. You have to instill that hunger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a question in driving around and being in the U.S., what are some of the things that you see in construction that drive you crazy? I know you've got some, you know, whether it's a waterproofing technique or, you know, species of wood we use.
No, I wouldn't say there's things that drive me crazy. To be honest, it would be being in North America, working in Canada, and actually going home. Mm-hmm. So the things that drive me crazy is our minimum standard, the NCCC, our minimum standard sucks.
Really?
Sucks. So I lived in Canada. That was the coldest experience I've ever had.
Uh-huh.
You know, some days in the town that we lived in, Revelstoke, it would be minus 25, like
oof.
Proper cold.
Yeah.
And I moved back to Australia, and I hadn't been more cold. I was more cold in Australia than I was living in Canada.
Really?
And it's because the standard, the legal standard, is single glazed, aluminium, non-thermally broken windows.
Really?
Crappy ass windows. Pretty much everyone's living in tents. They just don't know it. They're going, oh, look at my $1 million renovation. And they've got these crappy ass windows and doors.
Really?
And they're just
so the stuff that I'm seeing is like the super high end shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
What we're doing
yes.
is above the norm.
Yes.
We don't like if my clients want to build with me,
uh-huh.
I've got minimum standards, and they're way above the Australian standard. And if they don't want it, just go find another builder.
Yeah.
Like we've got the philosophy for the business is a fabric first approach. So we build a really good shell.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else can be changed. Everything else can be renovated. You can put new kitchens and bathrooms in a later date,
mm-hmm.
but that building is going to be super insulated, really thermally efficient, be able to breathe. I think that's
mm-hmm.
a big thing. People don't understand that mold is deadly,
mm-hmm.
and not being able to manage your moisture content in your building, your envelope, all that kind of stuff is so important. So that's kind of the way that we do it. But then, like, honestly, I come over here and I see the way you guys build as a minimum standard, it kicks our ass.
Well, and especially in Austin, though, because we're, you know, from an efficiency standpoint, an energy efficiency standpoint, I think we're even leading California at this point.
Yep.
You know, just the standards. We've had to go to all, you know, primary LED lights, you know.
Yep.
Foam insulation's kind of a standard now. You know,
Yep.
It used to be, you know, batt or rolled insulation or blown in insulation. Yep. And, you know, foam was always too expensive to use, but now it's become the norm. So it's, you know, you can get it for a very good price, and those things pay off. And those are some of the things that we have to educate homeowners on.
Yep. And in the cost of like a build, right?
Yes.
Insulation's the cheapest.
It is.
And like you're trying to like say that this needs to be, and they'd be like, but I want my gold tap.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay that. I want to put it in my tap. You're like, seriously?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the thing that we have to often educate people about is it's not only the end price of the house, but it's the cost to live in the house.
100%.
So you may pay X amount of dollars, and that's your budget, if you would.
Yep.
But how much is it going to cost you to live in it? And, you know, those things that are inexpensive, like insulation as an overall percentage of the job, how quick can you pay for that by not paying double utility bills for what you would have, you know, you could have paid half if you had certain insulations and insulated values
100%.
in there. You know, so it's an education as well. But there again, it's one of those things that's kind of generational too. A lot of people don't have that type of knowledge. So you got to continue to share those things.
Yeah. Like it's funny, like, you know, I follow a lot of different builders on Instagram, competitors, and I wouldn't even say competitors because I don't feel like we have many competitors where we live. We're just doing very different stuff. I've got my focus on sustainability, and I practice what I preach.
Yeah.
I think that's another big thing. But then you see your competitors and, you know, they're doing some lovely work, but then they're just missing some key things, like they don't wrap their houses properly. Just like, whoa. Or they do like a great wall build up and they put crappy windows in.
Yep.
And they look nice, and the clients think, you know, this is a great product, and it's like,
it's just not.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. What is one of, and I think I may know the answer already. What was one of your favorite builds that you have done?
It'd be probably my house. Yeah, our company office / display home.
Yep.
Pepper Tree Passive House. Most favorite, most stressful.
Yes.
So it was my first development. So we live in the front house. I've got 3 kids now, but at the time I had 2 little twins, and my partner fell pregnant.
Well, how did that happen? You're like, it just happened.
Just happened.
Yeah.
Immaculate conception.
Yeah, exactly.
So Amy, she fell pregnant right, February 2020, and COVID hit.
Yep.
Right. So then I've got this project. My other main project was coming to an end. All the projects that I had lined up fell.
Ooh.
And I was just like, and I had like a crew, and I'm like, you feel very responsible when you're a business owner. Like, I talked to my partner about the stresses of being a business owner and how much weight is on your shoulders, how many families depend on you, mortgage, bills, yada, yada. So it was super stressful. And looking back at it now, like with everything that was going on in the world and the family and COVID and everything, I didn't truly get to enjoy it as much as I would have loved to. I didn't get to go a bit slower and just really soak it up. So it was very stressful, but I finished it. I don't know how. Amy still doesn't know. She's like, "How did you do that?" And I'm just pulling rabbits out of hats. Yeah. I've got this kind of philosophy of like, put things out into the universe and they will come back to you. It sounds crazy. I'm a bit of a spiritual kind of guy. I think about that kind of stuff, but I think it's very important to, you've got goals and ambitions, like write it down, get it out there, verbalize it, and then it's out there. You've got to do things to make these things happen, but the universe, you say something like, "Man, I need a new car, but I don't have the money for it." Like, you throw that out there, and then a new job's going to come to you, or an opportunity for you to make more money to actually get that car. Yeah. So the universe just came at me while I was building it, and I fell back on my feet, and I won a couple of jobs, and I limped to the finish line and made it work. And now I'm super proud of it. Yeah, super proud. And even just the reaction when people walk in the door for the first time and see the whole thing, like, it's great. Yeah. It's refreshing.
Well, and I bet even to go and look at it on a daily basis as well is something, it's more than a house at that point, right? It's justification that what you were doing right.
Yep.
And I'm a firm believer in putting things out there.
Yep.
The entire world is built on frequency.
Yep. 100%.
I'm all about, frequency, grounding, and everything puts off some sort of frequency or energy, and you have to be a positive impact to that energy versus a negative impact to that 100%. Energy, because it'll fuck you up. And it's a lot of times I've always been younger guy, big hot head and everything else, super negative, and that's even something every once in a while I've got to look at myself and go, pull it back a little bit, don't be so negative. Look at the positive side, because everything's about perspective, right? And at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm learning to do is not I have to do something, I get to do something.
Yeah.
I get to, have to dig this hole and repair this, that, or the other. I'm blessed to have had, even though it's an issue, I know that I can take care of it, and I'm happy and blessed to know that I can take care of it.
100%.
And things like that. And it's all about perspective and mindset. And it's wild once you start changing that positiveness. You see the benefits of that completely all around you.
And it's infectious. Like, I talked to my younger guys about it. Like earlier this year, we were doing one of our projects. We were stripping a roof, and it's hot, like boiling hot. We're on a roof. It was sunny. We could see the ocean. And I turned to them. I was like, "This is the greatest fucking job in the world.
Yeah,
like, I love what I do. Like, this is awesome." I don't want to be stuck in an office. I never started my career to be in an office. It's kind of, obviously running a business is a little bit of both. You got to keep the wheels moving, but being on site, working with your hands, job satisfaction, loving what you do, it's and have that positivity to it all. Like, and building's hard. Building's hard. Some clients can be hard. Some architects can be hard. Some jobs can just be difficult, even when everyone's great. You get problems, but it's just like the way that you approach these problems. Like my site manager Elliot, we go through it all the time. We're like, we come up with something that, as you know, on paper and the real world, they just don't work sometimes. Yep. And it's like, it's how you approach it, and like, okay, well, it's not a problem. Where's the solution? Yes. Where do we brainstorm? Where do we keep the architecture, make it functional, make it cost effective, and get all the parties involved? And it's a good brainstorming exercise, but it's just how you approach it all. Yeah, and it's never the problem. It's always the solution. That's something I try to preach constantly. But it is funny that you do bring up architects, because there's very few architects. We have some great ones here in Austin that actually have a design and technical mind, because that's two different sides of your brain, right? Yep. You can draw a pretty picture, and anything can be built. However, how much is it going to cost to do that, right? Yeah. And a lot of those guys don't have the technical aspect when they do draw, and again, it can look super pretty and it can be built, but it may blow your budget. And a lot of times, sometimes if you can just move something 6 inches, 10 inches, you can save thousands of dollars. And people just don't understand that, I think, a lot as well. So it's kind of funny that you bring that up, because a lot of times we run into that too. And just to go, if we move this 6 inches over, I can save you $15,000 because I don't need a steel beam now, or something like that. And they're just things that oftentimes get overlooked, which is crazy. So, but it is difficult because myself, like you're in a different realm than me. You're developing. You're kind of your own boss, 100%, and that's my goal. That's where I want to be. But I work with architects, and I've got to, work with them in regards to making sure that they're happy with the architecture, and obviously still looking after my clients and making sure that the price is fair for what they're getting. And you can paint a whole house in gold, but it's going to cost a hell of a lot. Yeah, exactly. And anything can be done. That's what I say to my clients. I can do anything. Anything you want. What's the budget? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, it's kind of funny that you bring that up. Over the past couple of years, we started doing a couple customs as well. And to your point, primarily we're getting a lot into land development and building, and kind of doing both ends, which is kind of rare, I think. Especially in Austin. Typically, it's you're doing infrastructure and land development, and then you're out, or you're doing the vertical build. But very few do both. And that's where we've been able to add a little bit of value to some of our projects as well, just because there's a chunk of a markup between land development and vertical development. And so if you can spread those out across the entire project, it makes the overall project more profitable. And we just started doing that because it kind of as a need to, right? It wasn't something that I had intended to do, but it was one of the things in Austin. We only have so much land. And so you've got to be super creative of how you do things. And then if you start taking down several lots next to each other, well, utilities become a problem. So now you've got to get in wet utilities, dry utilities, storm sewer stuff. Now you're into streets, and now you're into curbs. And before you know it, now you're into asphalt, But to be able to do those things helps tremendously. At least us, and we're finding that out in different markets as well, because it's very similar. You're either a land developer or a vertical builder, and we're going there doing both, and the city's looking at us going, what do you mean you're doing both? And so it's a little bit of a different take. But with that said, doing
projects on your own or spec type projects is completely different than working with clients.
Yep,
you know,
100%.
And our motto is it's always been, you know, during the design phase, that's the dating period, right?
Yep.
And at the end of the day, this is going to be a marriage of sort, right?
It is. It's a long-term relationship.
It is. So it's got to work, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the people that we do business with are friends.
Yep.
They come from preferred architects, which I know what type of information is going to come out of there.
Yep.
And just great projects. You know, we like doing, especially with those are, that's the time where creatively I can be a little more free.
Yep.
Because just doing a spec home, you know, you need to keep your sales funnel as big as possible, right? So you may not do...
It's like low profit margin, right? So
exactly.
You got to have a lot of volume.
Yep. And then you've got to, you know, on top of that, you've got to be able to attract several different types of people. So you may not put a particular tile in, which narrows the amount of people that would like it.
Yep.
And, you know, we're doing little funky things here and there that others aren't. We're doing car lifts and garages.
I love your car lifts, by the way. I was actually talking to Joey about it.
Yeah.
We grabbed a coffee and I saw a development that was very similar to how you do it. You know, very clever, 3 stories, you know, 30, 45 degree pitch, but put a loft in there. It's technically 2 stories, but it's 3.
Yes.
And then you get your car lifts in, which are just phenomenal. I'm going to take that.
Yeah,
I'm going to take that back because people need, like, space is huge, and keeping like your landscaping, and then, you know, how you battle axe it, throw another one in the back, or do, you know, how you change the whole street sometimes.
Yeah, completely.
Love it.
And the truth is, you really only need to raise your ceiling height about 16 inches.
What's that in centimeters?
Yeah, I mean, this big.
Yeah.
About that big.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But you can't, and what we found was, you know, we were getting punished to create a 2-car garage just because of impervious coverage and stuff like that. You still need parking. Most people will have 2 cars.
100%.
You know, and it's not going to work for, you know, an SUV and a truck. But for 2 cars, it will work.
Yep.
And at least this way, for what they cost us installed, they're under $5,000.
Wow.
So I can't make a 2-car garage for under $5,000.
Yeah.
You just can't, right? You know, with the concrete and everything else. So I looked at that to solve that problem, number one. But number 2 is because when you open the garage, people, and you tell someone there's a car lift in there, they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Ever.
Yeah,
so
you
good.
open the garage and you've got a car lift.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
My other Tesla's just up there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, and you just always try to, especially with spec building, you've got to try something a little cool that no one else is doing. You know, years ago we started doing, you know, just giant steel and glass pivot doors. Now everybody does them.
Yep.
So it's always trying to figure out what's next. And car lifts were the next thing, you know. And then you don't know that they're there from the outside, right? It looks like a single car garage.
Yeah.
You know, and then just only raising that ceiling height a little bit allows you to get that in there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat.
Ingenious.
I know, it's pretty neat. So we're going to continue to do those. It's, you know, little goofy things like, you know, we've gotten heavy into health and wellness. So we put steam showers in all of our master bathroom showers.
Yep. I'm right into that right now.
I mean, it's phenomenal. I love that stuff.
The health aspects of it all, everything.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. People live in their house most of their life, right? You're there. Granted, you're sleeping a lot, but why would you not have those additives to your house if you've got it there?
Yep.
You know, I'm very lucky to be at this gym, and my office is at the Collective, you know, so I've got all of that here, but I've also got it at the house, you know, and those are things that I think people will see value in. You know, the cold plunges, the hot tubs, infrared saunas, steam saunas.
It's so funny, like you're already doing it. So we've got an investment that we've renovated, and we've got a couple of Airbnbs. So Pepper Tree's on Airbnb, and we've got another one. And I battle axe the back of this property, just like you would, and put all the services out there. So it's a big chunk of land that's ready for my next development that I want to do. But you know, I talked to Amy about it, and I'm like, we're putting a sauna and an ice bath out there, and we're just going to put that on Airbnb and just watch that thing just explode, because people just want to stay in their own little private sanctuary. They don't want to share a sauna with random people. Like, to have that as an experience, like, and I want it selfishly. I want to be able to just, oh, sweet, it's available. I'm going for a sauna and an ice bath. Like, so good.
That's something that's kind of funny that you bring up, is short-term rentals and things like that. I don't think people actually understand what a benefit that can be financially, but for your self-use as well. So we've got one specifically downtown in the Zilker neighborhood that whenever we have people come in, that's where they stay. You know,
exactly the
and
same.
it's
exactly
you know,
the same.
it's you built the product, you everything.
We just block it out. Like, when are you coming? Give me dates. Give me notice, because it's booked. And I just block it out. Like, I had a buddy that just came over from England. I'm like, sweet, you're staying in Pepper Tree, dude. Him and his wife stayed in there. And they're like, this is gangster.
Awesome. Yeah.
Give me a house. Like,
and then you can use it when it's available.
So we do that with my kids. So our other property, it's about 3 minutes away.
Okay.
And we do like staycations. We're like, it's available this weekend. I'm like, it's not booked out. I'm like, all right, kids, we're going to go get pizza and go stay at Farnborough. And they're like, woo! Like, they love it.
Exactly.
It's so good.
It's so cool. So it's not even, it's from, an investment standpoint, plus that property value is continuing to go up.
100%.
And that's the thing. All millionaires are in real estate, right? And even billionaires as well. But it's once you get into billionaire status that they actually invest a lot more in it versus actually owning more of it. But they're in portfolios, things like that, because they're not making any more real estate. And
I love the word real estate. Like, watching some of the stuff, we're very similar to our mindset. I'm all about investing in things I can touch, things I can improve, and things that I classify as real. Like, real estate, 100%. Like, obviously, it's a long game. If you're in it as a short-term investment, thinking that you're going to make heaps of money, like, you're going to get owned. Long game. But and then like gold and silver, like, I just changed a whole bunch of our self-managed I made a self-managed super fund. You guys call it like 401k.
Oh yes.
And I was just like, I don't know enough about stocks. I don't know enough about Bitcoin. Like, I know some people have Bitcoin, but to me it's still out of my, I can't touch it. But stocks and stuff, and I just like, I want stuff that I know that's tangible. Like, I think it's like a tangible asset, even if it doesn't produce an income, it increases in value. It's a good hedge against inflation, all these things. So, seeing some of the stuff that you're saying, I was like, that's what I do.
And it's funny because I never thought that I would dig gold and silver and stuff like that. And when I started getting into it, I was like, I'm fucking getting old. You know what I mean?
That's what Amy said.
I was just like, for real, I'm getting old.
They're like, I got like a savings account for the kids, right? You put like, a couple of dollars a week away. And I was like, watching in this account, I'm like, this isn't doing anything. Inflation's going up. One stage it was like, what, 7, 8, 9%. I'm like, I'm getting a ham sandwich here. Actually, it's eroding. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start buying some gold and silver for the kids. Start locking it up in these coins. Long term, they're going to be good. And then Amy's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, just trust me.
You break out your coffee can.
And I'm trying to teach my kids this. Like, I'm trying to teach them that this is actually value, and people are going to, right now it's what, $24 an ounce for a silver coin. In 10 years' time, it might be $150.
Yeah, well, and because it's valued, several nations are starting to back their currency with that, which most currency was backed like that. And, the U.S. dollar is not.
1976, and took the gold.
Took the gold standard away. So now you get a piece of paper that says basically, I owe you this. So it's not worth shit. So, and I've said it for a while now. What's going to happen when everybody that's in the BRICS, system goes, we don't want your dollar anymore. It's not worth anything. That could be a very
when
huge
it's not
possibility.
Backed by oil, right?
When
it's not a petrodollar.
And that's the thing, Saudi has done trades, and that was part of the deal and the reason why the petrodollar is the petrodollar, but they're starting to do trades in other currencies that are backed by gold and silver.
We're in like a transitionary period.
I know.
I talked to Elliot about this, my site manager, and like electrification, it's coming, and it's coming fast. Like in regards to your house, your vehicles, everything. Like the transfer of like how we're going to start powering things. And if you're not on the front foot, like you're going to be left behind, and you're going to be hurting. Like I've got this, I say to Elliot, like, I reckon by the end of like 2030, like you won't be able to sell your diesel or your petrol car because it's going to be way more way cheaper, cheaper to run, like everything. And it's going to, if you're not ahead of it, it's going to kill you.
See, and the funny thing is, and I may just be a redneck in this aspect of it, but I will never get rid of my diesel truck. I will always have a diesel.
But it'll be like a historic vehicle.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You'll keep it because you've got that nostalgia with it. You love the engine. But as a business owner, you're not going to have a fleet of diesel trucks to run your business when you could have a fleet of Cybertrucks that don't need any servicing, pretty much, compared to a combustion engine. Use free energy from your roof of your warehouse or however you operate. It's like,
and I think the thing that would be awesome if that stuff was less regulated. Right. My wife had gotten a loaner car. We had taken her car in for service, and they gave her a loaner car, and they gave her an electric car. But they didn't give us a plug or anything. So they were like, oh, there's charging stations everywhere. And we literally would have to drive around and find a charging station that was not broke, and then they didn't work. Or then we found one at the mall. So we'd have to walk around the mall for like 3 or 4 hours or leave it there and then come back. And at that point, I was like, I'm never owning an electric car again.
Was it a Tesla?
No, it was a Mercedes.
See, that's the thing. Like Elon, like people hate the guy.
I love him.
I think he's great.
I love him.
Like,
I love him.
Straight up, I'm biased.
I love the way he trolls everything. I love how he trolls.
But he's put the infrastructure down. He's doing what the government didn't do or hasn't kept up with. So like we went on a holiday, and I wanted to make a point. We went up to Nambucca, which is about a 7-hour drive from where we live. And I said to Amy, I was like, we're taking the Tesla. And she's like, what? She's freaking out. What if we run out of energy? I'm like, what if we run out of petrol? Like, it's the same thing. Like, the car literally says, you have to stop here and charge. And it's fast. And I've got 3 kids. They need to get out. Then we need to stop every minimum 2 hours. Usually an hour and a half. Like, I've got to go to the toilet, Dad. I'm hungry. I'm sick of fighting with my brother or my sister. So we would literally like go to these Tesla charging stations, and they're usually in supermarkets, like shopping centers, plug it in, get an app on your phone. And it's like 15 to 20 minutes, supercharge, boom. And it costs nothing. Like, in retrospect, a tenth of the price that it would to fill up your truck. And the kids need to go to the toilet anyway. By the time we get back, it's usually done before we're finished. And then we're like, all right, we're going to get back because, if you don't, they start charging you.
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
It's good. It's like, keeps it moving.
The thing that I'm looking forward to is when they bring out Nikola Tesla's device that actually produces energy. And the U.S. Navy owns all or a majority of Tesla's patents. That's go down that rabbit hole.
Okay, all right.
Go down that rabbit hole.
That's a podcast.
It's pretty insane. They own the levitation technology that was Tesla's and stuff like that. It's a huge rabbit hole. So you'll go down it, and what you'll find is that Trump's uncle was the fellow that they brought in to look at all of the patents. Before they took them.
Wow.
So there's supposedly a self-generating thing that's like 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot that will produce all the energy that a city would need.
Like fusion.
And so, and the Navy's got all that stuff. So you go, why the fuck don't we have it? You know what I mean? So you can go down rabbit holes with that. But Tesla is the stuff that he came up with that we never saw. It's unfortunate. Because we could be in a completely different, can you imagine having one of those in each vehicle? You would never have to charge it. It just produces its own
Or
energy.
in your house.
In your house. Or in your city. We wouldn't have these power grid issues and stuff like that. I've got a question. What do you guys, kind of as if you had to take kind of like a whole synopsis, what do you guys look at the U.S. in comparison with the shit show that we have going on? Outsider looking in.
Like, to be honest, like after COVID and 2020, pretty much my partner and I don't watch the news.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. Like, it's hard to swallow nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't believe everything that I hear now. Mm-hmm. That's just me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I vaguely see a little bit. I don't see too much. Mm-hmm. I know you guys are having an election year.
Yeah.
You know, I saw this funny video on Instagram, and it was like, you know, and I have no affiliation with either president, Trump or Biden. Like, full disclaimer.
Yeah, go ahead.
But there was like this video of like Joe Biden walking, and he's like walking real slow, and then it flipped to one of Tesla's robots, and I'm like, it's super funny.
I know.
Yeah.
But even things like that, and just watching to go back to Elon and stuff like that, how he I'm sure it wasn't with that, but his trolling's getting pretty good.
Yeah,
just with everything in general, right?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I've always been curious what we look like to the outside world now.
Like,
because we've changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's just due to technology.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's, you know, you can only make decisions and have knowledge over the information that you're given.
Yeah.
Right? 50 years ago, you had the 6 o'clock news and you had a newspaper.
Yeah.
That was it, right? Yeah. You didn't have anything else. So that was the gospel. That's what you knew supposedly that was going on. But now we all have phones, we all have computers, and we can get, you know, reach different countries and find differing stories and go, wait a second, you said this was blue, but it was red, you know? And so that's where I just love people to think, right? You know, you can't look at something and just take it at face value anymore.
You can't.
And that's sad.
You can't. Yeah.
You know, from history to news to anything.
Well, that's the same thing, like with the whole gold and silver, right?
Yep.
For 401k, we call it superannuation. Like, talking to my best mate, and this was like, we were apprentices at the time. He's a sprinkler fitter. And it was like 2007, 2008, the GFC hits. He had this old digger that was working with him. He was like 65. That's pretty much retirement age.
Okay.
He had all his money in his super, you know. They trust these super funds. They manage them, all that kind of stuff. Wiped out half his super.
Oh, sheesh.
This guy had to, and it's really sad, right? This guy had to work for the next 3 years, salary sacrifice his entire wage, so his entire income for the next, just to boost his super back up to this level, which it didn't even reach where it was.
Wow.
And I think that's and looking more into super, right? 401k, and like when I started really pulling it apart and diving deep, and this is thinking for yourself, and I think not enough people do this. They're just like, oh yeah, my money's not really my money because my employer pays for it. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do in our country. It's like 12% or 12.5%. So they don't value it as their money because their employer is paying for it. But I'm my employer. So now I look at it very differently. I'm like, that's my money.
Yeah.
I'm paying my money into that super. So I'm more conscious of it. And, you know, they just forget about it, but they don't look at the fees, and they think that comes with like a life insurance policy. And like I was reading into the life insurance policy for our one, right? And it was pretty crap. You know, you die, you get 200 grand, or your family gets 200 grand. You get permanent disability, you get 100 grand. It was like the blanket policy. Everyone's got it. But the one thing that didn't really advertise enough, when you turn 65, that policy doesn't exist. So you're paying money for this policy for, you know, your whole working life. I hope I live longer than 65.
Yeah.
And then, boom, you've just been, you know, paying all these fees out of your super. And I was like, what is this? So I was like, boom, let's start our own self-managed super fund. Got our own life insurance policy, 99. If I get to 100 and that one expires, I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah.
But 99, that's where it should be. You know, proper cover, $1 million. Let's you know, what's your debts? What do your kids need to live comfortably?
Yeah.
So I think that thinking for yourself and not trying to just do what everyone else is doing, I think it's so important because,
big time.
You know, I don't want to be like, you know, Jeremy, my best mate's old digger mate, like that worked with him and lose half of your retirement.
Yeah.
For some external something happening
that you have no control over.
At least taking ownership, like at least if what I do, I stuff it up, that's not me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that. You know, but at the same time, when the things that I do work out, which have been working, you know, don't get me wrong, like I've lost money.
Yeah.
You know, that's building. But I'm still here. Yeah. Still operating. I feel like we're going in a pretty good trajectory.
Yeah. Well, and again, you have control over it. And a lot of people don't understand that, like, as a 401k, you can have a self-directed 401k. And people don't get that. They don't understand that. You don't have to pay a Charles Schwab or a different bank. You don't have to pay them.
Administration fee for what?
Yeah.
What do they do?
You know, they're making money whether they win or lose,
exactly.
Period.
Yep.
And that's what's sketchy, you know, and you get into some of these ETFs and things like that, which look good on the outside.
Is it real?
But their fees will kill you, you know. So if you can do some of these things your own, you're better off. However, you know, it's funny watching how the market can be manipulated. And you see it with cryptocurrency. You know, Bitcoin's at almost 53,000 right now. And it's going, all crypto's going up right now. Something's going on.
I reckon silver's being manipulated. Like, the more I look into it, the how much they're pulling out of the ground, we're in deficit. The last 3 years been deficit, 2 or 3 years. The spread, so if you look at, like, you know, 1940, like how the difference in value percentage wise between gold and silver was like, you know, 10 to 40 times whatever. Now it's like 90. Like,
wow.
Yeah, like you look at, like, well, it's just, I think it's $2,000 an ounce for gold. It's like 20, 22, 24 bucks for an ounce of silver. Like, the difference between the two is getting ridiculous. I 100% reckon, you know, it's beyond my knowledge, but it doesn't make sense. And I reckon in the next couple of years, someone's going to push a button and let it rip. And I'm ready for it.
100%. You know, it's kind of funny. When I started accumulating gold and silver, I was told in the beginning, buy silver for weight. And if shit hits the fan. So, like, I have coins that were bought for weight, you know, and the gold that I bought was not to be traded. That was solely to hold and use more like as savings. And the fellow that got me into it explained it very easy. He said, okay, shit hits the fan, money doesn't work. Are you going to take a small gold bar into a grocery store and peel, you know, take your pocket knife? And no, you're not. You're going to take a couple solid silver coins and you're going to go pay for your stuff.
Buy some milk, buy some bread.
There you go. And I was just like, oh, so I know that if it goes into gold, I'm never touching it again, type of thing, right? You know, so we've got gold and silver, but we've got more poundage, if you would, of course, of silver. And we've got some big silver bars and stuff too, but we solely buy for weight, you know, because of that. Because again, you have to look at trading value. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't take some of that silver after you've accumulated X amount and then buy a smaller ounce of, you know, gold or something like that too. But you know, just looking at that differently. It's kind of funny. I've got some older buddies that only do gold. And I've brought that up. Well, shit hits the fan, what are you going to do? They don't have that answer. You know, break out that pocket knife.
And, you know, like, people get worried too. I'm like, it's super liquid. You go to a bank, they'll cash it in. Spot price, worldwide, every day.
All day long. You know, what's funny is there's a gold and silver place that I go to that's not far away from here. And I oftentimes see this lady that comes in. She brings one gold coin and they pay her for it.
Wow.
And I had seen her 2 or 3 times, and I said, if you don't mind me asking, you know, and she said, well, you know, my husband collected these and had these for years, and this is, you know, I come in every couple months and I cash one in, and that's what I live off of.
That's so good.
And I was just like, it's brilliant. And she was like, I don't trust keeping my cash in a bank account. This will always be worth something. So when I need it, I cash it in.
And that's exactly what I want to teach my kids. Like, you know, this is like it's a hedge against all of it. You know, at the end of the day, it's been, it's been in the earth. It's part of the earth, right?
Yeah.
It's been here for
it's a
however
commodity.
long. Yep.
And it will always be worth something, you know.
Especially with renewables.
Yes.
Like people don't understand. And this is part of the where I think it's been manipulated, because like we're using more silver than ever before. Every single Tesla car, there's a couple, however much silver in it. Mm-hmm. Tesla batteries, any battery, solar panels. See all that twinkle between that's silver.
Yep.
I'm like, it's everywhere. And it's like, it's in, unfortunately it's in war. Like it's in missile heads.
Yep.
It is everywhere. And it's like, why is it still so cheap? Mm-hmm. And they're not producing more than they need?
Or the question that I would turn to even is think about how much silver is really out there then. And it's kind of like, anything that they say that there's a short supply of deems a higher price, right? Yep. And then you go, well, wait a minute, how much of it really is out there?
Yeah, like how much is being stored?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Or how much are you aware of that's out there? And if we understood how much is out there, would it deplete the price of it? Even with gold and oil and stuff like that. Yep. It just blows my mind that the U.S. can, I think on average, burns 65 million barrels of oil a day.
Yeah, right.
So I look at that and I go, okay, that's the U.S. And then if you look at other countries, and it's hard for me to understand that there's that much fossil activity below the ground.
Yep.
That there's a limited supply of it.
Yeah.
Because we don't ever run out of it, right?
Yeah.
And so at some point you got to go, what would happen if oil or petroleum was just a byproduct of the earth?
Yeah.
Something the earth just produced.
Yeah.
Would if we knew that, if that was true, it'd kill revenue for countries because it would deplete the price of oil.
Yep.
So that's where, just because you start looking at things and you go, when you start finding out that someone's lying to you, you go, well, what about this? Is this the truth? Is it not the truth?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of what makes me think, because it drives me crazy going 65 million barrels a day. But we're still pumping it out.
And you guys have it a hell of a lot cheaper than us.
Yeah.
Like you guys have in gallons, obviously, but
I
was doing the conversion. I was like, man, like if we were to, obviously there's the exchange rate, the Aussie dollar and stuff, but let's keep that aside. If we were to pay, what we're paying like $2 something a litre off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't really look.
Yeah.
It'd be like $8. There's 4 gallons, 4 litres in a gallon. It's like $8.
Wow.
Like you guys, there would be anarchy.
Yeah.
Anarchy.
Oh yeah.
But it's funny, like, you as a business owner, you look at these overheads and you're like, you look at your fuel bill, company cars, all this kind of stuff. You're just like, man, I'm getting killed.
Yeah. And now that makes more sense on your side for the electric aspect.
100%.
Because even I just filled up my diesel truck, 32-gallon tank.
Yep.
And it was, I think we were at like $3.45 a gallon.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, and then I look at that, right, and I go, I can drive this thing for 300,000 miles, 500,000 miles, and just have normal wear and tear, brakes, tires,
see? That makes sense.
For forever.
The scale of economics for you guys makes sense. But for us, it doesn't. All the mechanic fees, servicing your car, all of that. And then you're just like, man, and everyone's kind of numb to it back home. Like I remember when, I sound old again, right?
Right.
When I was a first year apprentice, so like I remember it was like 90 cents a litre, 85 cents a litre. And when it hit $1, everyone's like, I remember the signs didn't have 3 digits, and they were sticking up. Like laminated pieces of paper, putting a 100, and everyone's like, "It's $1."
Everybody thought the world was coming to an end.
Yeah. And then it just keeps going up and up and up, and everyone's just like, "Oh."
Well, and that's the thing too that people don't understand with this whole inflation. This is worldwide.
Yeah.
So fuel affects everything. It affects food, common goods, everything.
Building.
Yeah, because you've got to get product to be able to use it. It's got to get there somehow.
Yep.
And that's the part that people just don't get too. So that's kind of interesting as well. That'd be insane if we had to pay those prices.
How was like the whole transition of all the inflation, like the cost of build? Did you have like some, material increases?
We had insanity increases is what I call them, like a sheet of OSB or plywood, if you would. Used to be $12, and then during COVID and all that shit, it got up to $42, $43 a sheet. And so if you're in a job, which we were in several, where we had budgeted $12, $13 a sheet, and now we're having to pay $42, $43 for that exact same sheet. And the funny thing was, before I started building, I sold lumber. So I still have a lot of buddies that still sell lumber. They work in lumber mills, stuff like that. It wasn't because the production wasn't there. They were falling apart at the seams with OSB and plywoods. They couldn't get it to location.
Supply and demand, right?
That's what it was.
There was such a demand.
Yes. Yep. And so the manufacturers made it, and they had so much of it they couldn't get rid of it. However, they just couldn't get it to the people that needed it. And that's what kind of drove some of those prices up as well. The product was there. We just couldn't get it.
It was out of control. So we had this thing where like LVLs, you guys use LVLs?
Oh, yeah.
So, and thank Christ I built Pepper Tree. I pretty much had all my timber. I had the whole thing framed up pretty much before all these increases. So it was huge. I dodged a massive bullet. But this we couldn't get LVLs. Like it was like, call up my supplier. I'm like, man, I need to get some LVLs. He's like, you're gonna have to wait like 3 months. I'm like, I need to build this wall tomorrow. Like, what is going on? And then I had to start, really changing the way I program my jobs. Like I remember I had this one job, I was doing this bathroom renovation for this lovely client. And she's like, I want to get this toilet. And I ordered the toilet. It took 7 months. 7 months to get this Parisi toilet from Europe. And because of all the shipping embargoes and all this crap.
Wow.
And I was embarrassed. I was like...
it makes you look like you don't have your shit together, right?
Totally. So I had to like change the way that I like program my jobs and how I do everything. Run the whole business. And I was like, everything has to be ordered straight away. We have to contingency time. We had to allow for all of it. And then my clients, so we work on like a do and charge kind of business. So we call it
cost plus.
Cost plus.
Okay.
That's how we run. And, at the beginning when I started the business, like, 10%, maybe 15% contingency. That's what I tell my clients. A bit of wiggle room. But obviously if you change things, you add things, then the price is going to increase. Now I'm like, I got to tell my clients like 20 to 30. Like in the peak of it, I was like saying 30 to 40%. And it was just ridiculous. Like, a stick of LVL, like pre all this stuff, I think we were paying just like what you call it 2x4, 4x2. I think it was about $7 a lineal meter. And then it got up to like $12, $14, $15. And some of the, obviously the bigger sectional sizes, way more. Like markups were huge. I feel like I'm constantly calling my suppliers now. I call them monthly. I'm like, I got this legend, Bob, love it. And I'm like, Bob, where are we at? I give him my list. I'm like, where are we at per lineal meter? Pricing these jobs. I've got these other jobs running. I'm like, where are we at? Where are we at? And I feel like now it's kind of like, this has gone up. It's kind of plateaued a bit, where there's a couple of housing organisations that are saying that DA approvals have been the lowest in 20 years right now. So interesting. It still seems very busy, but I think people don't really think about the future enough in regards to, okay, just because there's all this work in the pipeline now, what's going to happen in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years? I talk to engineers as well. I'm like, how are you doing? How busy? Like I'm always trying to get a sense of like the macro-ness of it all, You
have to.
Not just focusing on,
today.
I've got this job and life's great, because if you have that mindset, you're gonna get chewed up.
It's true. It's true.
And you got to protect yourself. You got to like I'm always thinking about like, how do I produce my own work? How do I, if the world ends again, how do I keep my boys? How do I keep my staff? I've got Christy as well. I shouldn't say boys. how do you service, how do you keep the machine running? And as you've got this independence about you, like you've got this business model, and I'm envious, and I will get there, but it takes time. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like what was the journey for you? Like, how did you get to where you are like today?
And that's the funny thing. Outsider looking in, that's how it looks. Yeah. Right.
Everyone thinks it's caviar and Ferraris.
100%. And that's just where it's like, when you build a machine that's gotten to the point that we're at, you constantly have to feed that machine.
Yep.
And be smart about how you feed it. You don't want to do jobs just to keep the machine going that you can lose your ass on, right? You've got to be smart about that, and sometimes we'll slow our jobs down purposefully to kind of reset and everything, and then be able to go back into it. We've got a handful of jobs going right now, but we're getting ready to go into a development that we're going to do the land development in 12 houses, and we'll do all that by mid next year. So we're bringing some customs down, and it's all a matter of timing in the machine, and sometimes, to your point, you have employees and you feel responsible for those people. You've got to feed them. You've got to feed that machine. And so I think one of the benefits to having a positive attitude is it will work, right? And you can't be, held up in your house going, oh, I don't have any jobs coming in. I don't have this, that, or the other. You just can't do that, right? You can always produce. And with that said, it's because we're in an industry that not many are in. And that's that benefit that we have. I'm a firm believer, much like you. I do not want to do something for someone that I do not physically know how to do myself. Does that mean I used to love working with my hands and working with tools all the time, but there became a point, because we had so many projects, where I lost money if I did that. It brought me great peace, and I loved it.
But it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Financially, as a business owner, like you've got a lot of things that you have to do, and you've got to keep the wheels moving. And it's like I try to be on the tools, say right now I'm trying to be on the tools 60% of the time, 40% in the office. I'm growing. We're taking on more projects. We've got a lot in the pipeline, and it's kind of getting a bit ridiculous, which is first world problems. But then I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to have to take another step back, and I've got to make sure I keep this balance of being happy, being healthy, looking after my family, making sure that they're good, and also making sure that all my guys and my administrator, they're all happy. It's this, super balancing act. And you can't, as the builder, it's so funny, right? People think that being a builder, you're on the tools. You're a builder. You are not a builder. You are a psychologist. You are
a marriage
counselor. You're a business owner. You're trying to keep a lot of egos in check. You're trying to look after provider. You're every finance. You got, and that's the thing. Like, people think as a builder, you have to know everything about the business. If you don't know the finances, if you don't know how everything runs, like my accountant loves me, but I know at the same time, every time he sees my phone ring, his phone ring, and he goes, oh, Adam Souter again. Because I want to understand how it all works. I'm like, he's like, oh, this is this and this, depreciation, break it down, layman's terms. I want to know everything. Like, we go out to lunch, every year we sit down, we do pre-tax meetings. I'm like, I want to know everything. And as a business owner, you have to, it's so complex, and it's everything but building. Right?
No, totally.
Building's easy. Building's probably one of the simplest things ever. You have a problem and you can find out a solution. That's it. It's really not rocket science. There's technical aspects, and might make it look easy. That's obviously experience. But running a building company is so different, and so many people don't understand it. And that's the saying I like to say, it's all Ferraris and caviar.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, man. That's it. We just make it look easy. That's why you pay us type of deal, for sure.
Yeah, and you got to work. I think another thing, I'm sure, obviously you do this, you got to work on the business.
Yes.
You know, you can't just be in the business, and you've got to allocate time.
You have to do that to grow.
You have to. And to be better. And like Amy, she hates hearing me say this. I'm like, I've got to fix my systems and procedures. She's like, I don't want to hear you say that.
It's never ending.
It's never ending. And that's the thing. Like, you can never be satisfied, because you don't improve, you die. Like, someone else is going to do something better. They're going to pull out some, you know?
Yep.
So
totally true.
Yeah.
It's totally true. Where can people find your work? Are you on Instagram, Facebook? What?
Instagram? I don't know. Does anyone use Facebook these days?
I don't. I check it like every other day.
The relatives, like the relatives from America.
Yeah.
Joey's mom will send me messages on Facebook.
Yeah.
Instagram. We're on Instagram, souter.built.
Okay.
We've got a website, souterbuilt.com.au. We've got a website for our company office, peppertreepassivehouse.com.au.
And we'll be sure to put those links in the field as well, too, so people can check you out. But I really appreciate you coming in. I love seeing you, love seeing what you've done with your life in professional and private. It's been phenomenal, and I really appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, man.